We got him loud and clear now.
Silky smooth.
Odom, you know how to use that microphone, man?
No, man. What do you want me to do?
You just got to talk into the microphone. That's the main key. Talking because see what happens if you do like this, it drown. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right there.
Yep.
Loud and clear.
What are we talking about, by the way?
Hold on. Welcome, Stephen Odom and Thomas Zebley to the 307 podcast. We've got some ladies in the house. We are not in the studio right now, and I just had to tell the ladies to stop talking so we could do this podcast, and it stressed me out, dude.
Yeah.
Well, it took you long enough.
It did.
Like 5
Took
minutes.
you a few minutes.
5 minutes to be exact.
You finally got there.
What's the saying though? Like hell hath no fury
Like the scorn of a woman.
like a woman scorned.
Yep.
I mean, I thought I was about to get scorned, son.
You were about to get scorned.
See, there she is.
She's still thinking about
Disobeying
it,
the.
She's still talking. What have you done wrong?
I thought they were supposed to write notes to one another.
Yeah.
Look at this. For y'all watching on YouTube, this is my new piece right here. Thanks to Joe Biden.
Uncle Joe.
I bought this today because of Joe Biden's advice.
No, you've messed up. He said to get a double barrel, and you have got a pump action.
Well, daggone it.
See?
You
have not taken his advice.
Have y'all heard Joe Biden's advice on home defense?
shoot.
No.
If you hear something in your house, all right, look, this is straight from the top, the commander-in-chief, all right?
Okay.
If somebody is trying to break into your house or they're doing something mischievous on your property, all you've got to do is walk out onto your balcony and just fire 2 blasts. Don't aim at it, just fire 2 blasts with a shotgun, all right? You don't need 30 rounds. All you need is a shotgun. So, thank you, Joe. I'm ready now to protect my family.
And you've just got noisemakers in there, right? Because you don't actually plan on shooting anything. You just you just need the blast.
I took the pellets out of those shells and poured salt in there.
Yeah.
Because, that's all I need to do is make noise. And I've got another thing to show y'all.
You're going to have to get that up close or
Look,
something.
if y'all are watching on YouTube, this right here, these are my duck calls. Number 23 out of number 25. Only 25 of these are made in the whole year. All right. These are made by a legendary duck call maker, RNT, from Stuttgart, Arkansas, the duck capital of the world. They, all right, pink and maroon double barrel dyed maple burl wood. If y'all can see this, we're shooting in 4K here. So you should be able to see it.
Even your duck calls a double barrel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. These are Joe Biden approved.
They are.
You know, I'm real proud of these duck calls. I never would have expected to own something like this. These were a gift to me from my good friend, Thomas Zebley. How you doing today, Zeb?
I'm doing great.
I appreciate them calls, man.
Yeah, bud.
That's an heirloom piece. What's going on with you, O?
Hey, man, I'm just happy to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Well, I appreciate y'all being here. Have y'all done a podcast before?
I've done a couple. Yep.
What other shows have you been on?
Oh gosh, none that anyone would know. Just financial shows.
Didn't you do one on marriage advice?
Well, we were going to talk about that after the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, post show.
What show was that on?
Well, here's the thing, man. 20 years of marriage this year. And the one thing I can tell you after 20 years of marriage is the first 19 are the hardest.
Dang.
That's the best advice I can
Then
give
they
you
get
guys.
easy. They get easy, and
First 19 are the hardest. I'll let you know about 20. I got to get to August 4th, and we'll hit 20. But no, man, marriage is fun. I mean, look, without Brooke, we would have been hungry tonight.
That's true.
Oh, you dang straight we would have been
So-
hungry. Or either that or Zeb would have been cooking.
True.
Well, Zebs can cook.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we got our brothers Thomas Zebley and Stephen Odom on the show today. You know, our friendship has really developed over the last 2 years, I guess, about 2 years. And talk about how we met.
Yeah.
Because that's interesting. Because it meant a lot to me, and I'll tell my little piece on it after you tell your little piece.
Yeah. So it is interesting, and I think it's a good story for everybody that's listening and watching, because I saw you on Jesse Itzler's Instagram, and for whatever reason, you just really stood out, other than the obvious. I think you had your shirt off, and it was like the tatted up, long beard, Navy SEAL, whatever, which is kind of eye catching, regardless. But I don't know, there was just something about you that I was like, man, like I want to get to know Chad, and so. I signed up for 29029 with Thomas, and my mission, other than finishing 29029, was to meet you and to get one hike up the mountain with you. And so I formulated a plan, which was very simple. I was going to find you at 29029 and say, hey, if you'll do one hike with me, then I've got a company, and we've got 100 and something employees, and I'll buy T-shirts for all my teammates. And so, at 29029, as you know, the coaches sometimes have a lot of people that want to talk to you, and so it's kind of hard to find that moment where I could just come up to you and say, hey, here's my name, and I'd love to do a hike with you. And so I saw you at the Chow Hall.
Yep.
And you had the couple of guys that were sitting with you had just gotten up, and so I just kind of scooted in there and introduced myself, and I said I'd love to do a hike with you. It was probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
I know it was getting on into the evening.
Getting up there.
Yeah.
And I was getting tired, and saw you and sat down, and you said, well, let me hit the head and let's go. And that started our little friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for me, that was one of the first events that I had kind of went to I think that was the first time I had ever spoken to an audience. And I didn't know where I fit in this piece. And at those events, there's a lot of people there that are business people, right? I don't know nothing about no business people. And so, you rub shoulders with a lot of these folks, and they just a lot of them just ain't my type of people. But what's been cool about you guys is y'all are business people, but you're cool cats too. You know what I mean? And there was no way for me to realize that at the time. I treat everybody equally, but there was no way for me to realize that our friendship would actually be what I hope to be a lifelong friendship. And the interesting thing about those T-shirts that you bought is we had just got these T-shirts, man. We thought we were big shots because we had T-shirts, right? We didn't have anything else, nothing else to generate income. We started the company with $2,500, and we, got these T-shirts, and then you placed an order for 130 T-shirts, and we were like, holy crap, we in business now, son. You have no idea how much that meant to us. You remember when that went down, Blake?
Yeah, I think that was the first thing you told me. And he called me up and he said, man, I hiked with this dude and he's going to buy 130 shirts. And I thought, son.
Hey, we're good, son. Yeah, we're good for the year.
Yeah, that's right. Take the rest of the year off.
Yeah, done.
That meant a lot to us, man. It
Well, man,
really did.
that hike, you know, I'll remember it forever because at the end of the hike, you said to me, and it was now probably close to midnight, and you probably, I think I was on number maybe 8, 9, or 10, somewhere in that range. You were probably on, 12, 13, or 14, I would imagine. And you said, hey, I'm going to, so the first time that I did the October Vermont hike, I didn't finish. And so this was my second attempt. And so I really, really wanted to finish this time. And I had told you that going up the mountain. And you said, well, I'm going to go get some sleep, but I'm going to put my phone right beside my head. So if you need me, just call me, and I'll come back out here and I'll hike with you again. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, that, there was nothing you could have said that would have meant more to me at that point in time. Because like Jesse says, when you're there, that's your job. That mountain's your job. Mm-hmm. And I was so focused on really trying to finish. And I really, really appreciated, because I knew you would have. But there was no way I was going to call you and wake you up. But
yeah, it would have had to get bad for you.
Yeah.
Real bad. Yeah. I remember waking up the next morning, and that was the first thing that I thought of. Like, I want to go figure out where you're at just to make sure that you were still in the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was definitely on my mind. And I could tell right off the bat, man, that you were a good dude. You know what I mean? Like, you weren't putting on no airs. You weren't trying, and that's another thing, man. Neither one of you guys have been extremely successful in business multiple times. And it's like, y'all don't flaunt it. You saw who you're doing what you do because you love what you do. And that's unique, man. That's very unique. Zeb, man, you've had an interesting ride.
I have.
I want to hear a little bit about, first of all, you served in the Air Force.
Yes, sir.
I just want whatever you want to tell us about your service and then your transition, because you didn't just take the normal route once you got out. I mean, you've been in all kinds of stuff, dude.
Yeah, so, did what most of us did, just like you. High school, then I was like, I'm joining the service, did the Air Force thing, Middle East the whole time, pretty much the whole time. Saudi Arabia, Prince Sultan Air Base, Bahrain. And I've always wanted to fly airplanes. And so the Air Force paid for me to get my pilot ratings, got out, and flew for a little bit for Corporate Aircraft Partners. And
See, I had no clue you had done that.
yeah, I hated it. Worst job ever. Then 9/11 happened. Then got recalled in. It was, when you're a civilian and you get recalled in, it was a gut punch. But on my flight back, this guy, everyone was patriotic. And I'll never forget it. This guy's like, hey, you're sitting in the back of the airplane. How about you take my ticket and you give me yours? And I got to fly first class. It's kind of like when, we went duck hunting, what you said. Mm-hmm. And so I flew first class, never done it. And the guy that was sitting next to, he started making small talk, and he was like, man, I love hiring military guys. What are you going to do when you get back to the States? And I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to fly airplanes. I don't know what I want to do. And he was like, well, I can teach you business and teach you selling if you want to come to interview with my company on Tuesday. So Tuesday, and ended up, we were in London, and his office was in Roswell, Georgia. So this is a guy thing. And so got back on Sunday, went to his office on Tuesday. He said I'd be there at 7 a.m. He interviewed me, hired me on the spot, started on Wednesday, and the rest is history. We got acquired, and then I basically got lucky to do another business. Then a good friend of mine told me about a cybersecurity company. Then I started doing that. Then we got bought by IBM. Then I went and did another startup, and then that got acquired. Then I did another startup in Atlanta, and first company to raise $29 million in Series A. And during all this time, my younger brother passed away. He had a pulmonary aneurysm, and this is when I was just starting a business. And I'll never forget it, because that's when I realized that, hey, there's more to life than just business. And so my wife now, we were dating at the time. When he died, we were driving up this interstate and it said, "We party on Sunday." I'm like, man, what kind of church puts a sign up that says we party on Sunday? It ended up being a His Hands Church. Our business partner, the CEO at the time, he baptized my wife and I, baby dedication to our 2 kids. And I was in this fork in the road. Was I going to do another startup in tech, or was I going to do something else? And my wife said that God told her for me to do something else. And so Steve called me out of the blue. He's like, "Hey, would you want to come and interview and start this like thing that I'm already doing? It's insurance." I'm like, "Man, I don't think I'm going to want to do insurance." He's like, "Come and meet my business partner, Stephen Odom." And you know, once you meet Odom for the first time, he's like a brother from another mother.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. We went to Wingstop in Kennesaw, and we had freaking, you know, buffalo stuff everywhere, ranch everywhere, and we just basically just talked, and the rest has been history. 9 years next month. So that's the story.
Well, I want to ask you, Zeb, when you transitioned out of the Air Force, why did you decide to continue to pursue these things that were essentially yours or part yours? So things that you know, businesses, startups that you had ownership of, instead of just, you know, maybe going the more traditional route, because you've done this multiple times. So there's obviously something there.
Yeah, I would say, you know, the 1st and the 15th, you know, in the military.
Yeah.
And then I just remember wanting to move off base so I could make more money. Then got married so I could make more money. And my dad was in the Marines for a long time. And I didn't want to do a normal, like, collect a paycheck, if that makes sense. And I wanted to take a risk on my own, like just do something different. And I kind of knew when I was young I was going to do something different, but I just had to tell myself I'm just going to do this. So I did. I just took the risk.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. Don't get me. I mean, I was scared at first.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's that grit. Like I just knew I could just do it.
Do you get a thrill out of it?
Oh, I love it. Like what we're doing right now, we're starting another business, and I love it.
Yeah.
Starting something from new and just watching it grow. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
But it's hard, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're celebrating our 10th year anniversary at Impact, and that's on Monday. So, you know, a couple of days here. And it's hard to find the exact correct stats on the internet, but I think it's somewhere between 70 to 90% of companies fail. You know, they don't ever make it to 10 years.
Yeah.
It's somewhere between 70 to 90%
Wow,
don't
man.
ever make it to 10 years. But, you know, it's like 30% that don't ever make it out of the first year, and then 50% that don't ever make it out of the second year, and so forth and so on.
What are the main reasons that you, in your experience, why don't those companies make it out of that first year, or in most especially to that 10th year? Like, what has allowed you've done something right, obviously. Like,
Well, we both probably would have different answers, but I think the one thing that we really focused on with Impact is just get the right people on the bus. And so I feel pretty strongly that with our team, if you get the right people, you can go be successful open up a Krispy Kreme donut shop. You could be successful. You know, you can, if you get the right people on the bus. But that's the hardest part, is how do you get the right people? How do you have enough patience through the interview process when you're growing fast? How do you have enough patience to make sure that you're bringing on the right person and not just a person because you need a person just because you're growing? And that part is really, really hard to do.
yeah. Man, that's a solid answer. That resonates a lot with me because, you know, Blake and I, we just had to we just brought on our first new team member, Noah Cochran, Chile. And, yeah, I mean, we've been waiting for a year or more for that right person, right? And then it has to be the right person, but then you also have to be able to afford them.
True.
You know, so like, you know, that's another layer of difficulty that adds to getting those right people on the bus. But I'll tell you what, man, that gives me great confidence, though, to hear you say that, to know that if you are patient enough to get the right people around you that are, whatever you want to say, bought into the mission, with the right work ethic, the right values, the right standards, that it doesn't matter what you do, you can't fail.
That's right.
That should encourage a lot of people.
Yeah.
So.
And it's easy to talk about it. It's another thing to actually be patient and really try to find the right person. And when you're in that growth mode, and y'all are growing, y'all are doing some stuff right. You know, you're starting to build a nice business, and it's just hard to, because what happens eventually is you're no longer doing the hiring. Now you've got other people on your team that are starting to do the hiring. And so everybody has to be bought in on, hey, don't hire 3 to find 1, you know, which happens in a lot of companies. You go hire 10 guys and hope 1 makes it. You know, let's go find the 1, let's pour into them, and let's hope that they can make it.
Yep.
I just read that in the book, so I'm glad to hear that it actually works, and it's not just in a book.
This is why we brought these men on this podcast. We have, like, not just because they're our friends, but Brooke wanted to be on this podcast actually tonight. And I told Blake, I said, Blake, Brooke wants to be on the podcast. We only have 4 mics. Blake said, no, I got some stuff I can learn from these guys.
Be too costly for me to miss.
Yeah, he said, no, I'm on this podcast, son. What about you, Zeb? How would you look at that question?
Definitely on the hiring and making tough decisions early. You know,
What do you mean by that?
firing,
Okay.
which is one of the hardest things you would have to do as a business, any manager, but as a business owner. You know, Steve and I talked about this last time. You know, during COVID, we had to do some adjustments in our company, and we both made the decision together. Like, I don't care who you are, laying anyone off is a terrible. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah, I bet.
And you kind of feel like you failed, you know, but you really didn't, because Odom said it best. So he's the only CEO I've ever worked with. He's an empowering CEO. So an empowering CEO gets a group of leaders and he empowers them to do what they do best. And so he once said that if you're talking about someone next year and you haven't corrected it, it's your fault. And it's just that type of leadership,
Yeah.
you know, and then just making them tough decisions early. If you make them early, then the business will correct itself. If you do it late, then it becomes a cancer.
And again, that's one of those, it's easy to sit here and talk about it.
But
Yeah.
It's hard to do it.
Yeah.
But the successful businesses, you know, you gotta have the Thomas on the team that really holds everybody accountable for, hey, if it's not the right fit, then you have to make the hard call and you have to let them go, and we have to go find that right person. And you know, the thing that you got to think about is, if someone's on your team that's not happy, they may, you know, you're holding them back, because the next job they find may be their dream job. It may be the job where they can flourish, but they're afraid to leave because that paycheck, right? And so I think you have to always think about it from that aspect also of, look, we're holding this person back from going and finding what they're meant to do. And so let's not be selfish. Let's make the right call and go try to find the right person.
Hey, that's a good perspective, O. And I want to back up in your story of who you are, because I don't know your story, and just try to understand. Obviously, you've got some great strategy as it revolves around leading your team, and that ownership piece is so important. And I mean, how did you develop this type of mindset? Where did this come from? I mean, because
Yeah.
you're crushing it, man.
Well, thank you. So, my story is rather simple. It's definitely not as elaborate as Mr. Zebley's. It's my father was a butcher. He worked for 50 years in a grocery store, and my mom was a crosswalk guard. So every school I went to, she followed, and would just be the crosswalk guard at the school until I went to middle school, and then she was the crosswalk guard at that school. Oh. And my dad, growing up, he would say there was pretty much two things. Number one is you're never going to work in a grocery store. So he did, not that there's anything wrong. My dad gave me a great life, but he worked his butt off, man. You're talking 60, 70 hours a week. He was in the freezer in the back of the meat department.
That's rough work, brother.
And it's honorable work. It's hard work. We need it, right? I mean, you like to go to the grocery store and have a steak back there you can go buy and some hamburger meat. But he just didn't want me to do that. And then I remember when I was in high school in the 90s, Bill Clinton was president. My dad was in the Marine Corps. And I heard a recruiter call my house one day. And I actually answered the phone, and my dad's like, "Who is it?" And I'm like, it's this recruiter. And he goes, "Give me the phone." He comes over there and grabs that phone. He said, "As long as Bill Clinton is the president of the United States, my son will not join the military." Boom.
Huh.
And then he looked at me and said, "As long as Bill Clinton is the president, you are not joining this military." And my dad was actually a very soft-spoken man. I never heard my dad cuss. I never heard my dad raise his voice. A sweet man, but man, I saw a different side of him. So I knew I wasn't joining the military because he made it very clear he did not like that president for whatever the reasons were. And so I knew I wasn't going to join the military, and I knew I wasn't going to be a meat man. And I got lucky. I had just got married, and I had a buddy that I went to college with that he kept calling me saying, "You need to come over here and interview at this company." And it was just this little company that had he was the fifth employee there. And it's basically what we do now. It's this insurance marketing company. And I was in a point where Kendra and I just got married, and we didn't have enough money to go on a full week-long honeymoon. And so I said, "Well, look, we're going to go to Clearwater for a couple days for our honeymoon, and then I'll come back, and because I took the whole week off, and I'll interview at this company." And that's where I met Steve Craig, who was the guy he was talking about earlier, that really changed my life, gave me an opportunity in a business that I didn't know anything about. So really, I went from in high school, right after high school, I washed cars, and I built swimming pools and put on some roofs during the summer. And my first real job right out of college was just for a few months at this little medical sales company. And then I had this guy, just Preston Porter, just kept, come interview. And thank God I did, because it changed my life.
And when you met Steve,
yeah.
So was Steve working at that?
Yeah, he had
place?
started that company.
Okay, so Steve was the owner of that company.
He was the owner. He started it right out of his basement. It's just one of those stories that you've heard, guy with a telephone and a fax machine down in his basement. And I started the week after 9/11, and our industry really changed forever after 9/11, because people remembered again that the stock market doesn't just go up. And so what our products that we sell, basically it's a conservative type of product, and it's really good for seniors that don't want risk. And so after 9/11, it was probably like a $500 or $600 million industry way back then. And today it'll be, $100+ billion industry. And so sometimes it's luck too, right? Was that luck? Sure, I'm sure it was, that I got in right at the right time where this thing was about to take off like a rocket ship. And so that's my story is that's basically the only job I ever have done. I've done it for 20 years.
So did that small company that Steve started, did that become Impact?
That became it was a company called Game Plan, and they got bought by the largest insurance company in the world on the right day. It's called Allianz, and Game Plan was acquired by Allianz in 2005. And so basically I started off as just an entry-level sales guy, worked my way up to the sales team, then became the number one sales guy. And then when Steve sold Game Plan to Allianz, then I got promoted to run the sales team. And then 2 or 3 years later, I got promoted to be the co-president of the company. And so then I was co-president for about 3 years. And, I was making more money than I'd ever made, than I would have ever imagined that I would have made. But I was as unhappy as I'd ever been. And
For what reason?
There's a lot of, when you go from like this little small company, really no different. I mean, you guys are a team of 3 now. We were I was number 6.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like this little tiny thing with great people that entrepreneurial spirit is there, and you're focused on growing. And then when you get acquired by a huge insurance company that's owned, big German insurance company, then it's just things change, and you basically have a lot of attorneys that are very involved in every decision that's made, large human resource departments.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you get to a point where you can't, some of the stuff that we talk about, it's uncomfortable to talk about as small business owners. No one likes to talk about firing someone. But if you can't fire people, you all of a sudden are going to wake up in a different culture than what you grew up in. And so I was in a scenario where I'm the co-president of the company, but really couldn't make any calls that needed to be made without jumping through a million hoops.
Yeah.
And so I was, cranking out. I mean, we were doing great from a sales perspective, which means, you're making a lot of money. But man, I came home and I told Kendra, I was like, and we had, we had a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5 or 6-year-old at the time. And I came home and told her that I was thinking about starting Impact. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what it was going to be called, but starting something. And she's like, hey, we're with you. Whatever you want to do, we got your back. Mm-hmm. And so, what more could you ask for from a wife? Because, we had a pretty good life. And we were driving the BMW, living in a new house, taking the vacations to Hawaii and Bora Bora and this and that. So from a materialistic standpoint, had everything. But, when people say money doesn't buy happiness, I mean, that my story is it doesn't.
Yeah.
It buys options.
Yeah.
And it can buy you great toys and some fun stuff. But, man, that internal happiness, money can't touch that.
That's success. I think, everyone talks about success. I think that's exactly what it is that being, the money can be there or not. It certainly can help. But that internal happiness, if you don't have that, you don't have anything.
You're right.
And that's, we did a podcast with a lady the other day, and she told the same story you just told, and she called them the golden handcuffs. She said, I had the golden handcuffs on, and she did the same thing you did. But
that's right. Makes it hard to leave.
Yeah.
Especially when you have little kids and a wife, right? And everybody's dependent on you.
Yep.
And, you don't, nothing's guaranteed, man. You can have the best business plan in the world. And.
Yeah.
That security is quite a facade, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you, Zeb, what was driving you throughout your career to start these things up these businesses or these ideas in that tech industry to start these things up and then to sell them and then to restart and then to sell them. Like business to me, of course, this is probably me being simple-minded, is like I'm going to start this business and it's going to be mine for the rest of my life. Like I'll never sell this thing. So like what is the thought process? Were you starting these things up with the intention to eventually sell them? Is that how that works?
Yeah. So anytime in the tech space, you're always trying either you're going to IPO or you're going to sell. And I was fortunate enough to here in Atlanta work for a company called Internet Security Systems, and got to watch it grow. We went from Atlanta to worldwide, and then we sold to IBM. And when that happened, I got really close to a gentleman by the name of Chris Klaus, who started Internet Security Systems. I'm like, I'm going to sit down with this guy, and I'm going to learn as much as I can. And
Zeb, so what did Internet Security Systems sell for?
$1.2 billion.
Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, you're talking big money.
And he started it, and in life, I've been blessed. God just put people in my life, and he's someone that I'll never forget. When I met him, I was like, I want to know your story. Like, how did you create this? And what did you always want to do? He came up with an idea, but he knew he wasn't a salesperson. So he went out and hired this guy named Tom Noonan. And Tom Noonan is literally the best business mentor that I can ever, and a leader that I can say that I sat down with and watched him lead a company. And I said, I want to be that guy. If I ever get the opportunity, I want to be 50% Tom Noonan, 50% Chris Klaus. And if I ever get that opportunity, and I'll never forget Tom Noonan. And Steven allowed the company culture to change. And I was able to take what I learned from Tom Noonan, which is we had green couches, we wore jeans, T-shirts, we had free Coke. And it's like what you would see in any tech. But he had a way
That's Coca-Cola.
Yeah, definitely Coca-Cola.
Just for the record.
But I just wanted to have that experience. So anytime I had an opportunity to go and start something with someone or a friend, I just did it. And I'll never forget this, but it's kind of like when the last company that I sold with the group of guys, and I was going to do another security startup. And the guy that I was going to do it with, I knew I would have made money, but I wouldn't have been happy. And in my mind, I wanted to do something completely different. And that's where the Cooking Husband came in, because I was going to I have a blog site called The Cooking Husband, and because I like to cook, but I wanted to create a way for us guys to get what we want in life sometimes with the women.
Yeah.
And so I was going to pursue that. And that's how I consulted with Steve. I was like, man, I have this opportunity. I could probably sell this and make this a global name, The Cooking Husband. And then I had this other security startup thing. And then when I met Steven, it was lights out. And even this, I told Steve, like, we'll sell this business. I mean, I'll never forget. I was like, we will sell this business.
Huh.
And we did.
See, that's a whole nother mindset, and this conversation is so interesting to me, because that's a whole nother mindset on business, and I think it's a great thing for me to learn, because it puts me in the mindset to where I say, well, maybe I should pay a little more attention to the opportunities that I run into, right? Because we're in the mix, man. We're all over the place. You guys are too, and you run into the right people that have a good idea and ask you to maybe contribute in some way, shape, or form. Maybe that's not a bad idea sometimes. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole nother mindset for me, because this is brand new. You got anything, Blake? I don't mean to talk ear off.
He said he's soaking this all in.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
He's thinking about the next $1 million idea right there. I can see it.
Well, for us, our business is so intertwined with who we are. I guess that's the reason it's not really something that can be sold. At least not where it is now. You know what I mean? Because it has to be us.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's different. So when you guys met up, you're the president of this other company. You decide to branch off with Steve, start this other thing. You met Zebs. You guys, how big is y'all's team when y'all decide to branch off and start Impact? How many y'all start with?
When we started Impact, there was 6 of us.
6.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how does that work? Is there like one person does everyone own a different percentage?
Yeah.
And is that according to how much capital they can contribute on the front end, or how does that work?
Well, that certainly could be a way. The way we did it was I went to Steve and said, and Steve had told me, he and I had remained friends after he'd sold the company to Allianz, and you know, I think this was 6 years later, but I'd always knew because he told me that he put some money aside to one day do something again. He didn't know what it was going to be, and he was started His Hands Church that Thomas was talking about. So right when he sold the company, he basically started that church and just jumped right in.
Now, was he a pastor?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, for His Hands. I don't think he was before, but he built his own church and became pastor of that church.
That's really cool, man.
And so I met with him at a restaurant just right across the street from actually where our office is now, and I said, you know, that you still got that money that you talked about putting aside, and he said, yeah, and I said, well, if you'll fund it, then I'll run it. And he said there was one condition. He wanted his son and his daughter to both be able to participate. And so, awesome, because, you know, they both bring a certain skill set. His son was an IT guy, and you got to have that. And his daughter was very organized, and, you know, for a bunch of sales guys, you better have somebody that's organized.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was how we started it. Just a little core group. And then each person, you know, basically another thing that is, I think, just true in business is the guy that has the money makes the rules. So if you're going to let someone borrow 1.2, 1.4 million, whatever it was we borrowed, then, you know, you should be able to kind of make the rules.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, in my case, I mean, my risk was I was walking away from, you know, a huge income.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And so I didn't put any money in, but I did take a huge leap of faith.
You had some skin in the game.
Certainly. Yeah. Which is why I should have had equity and why I did have equity.
Yeah.
But the way we did it was Steve was the biggest shareholder. I was the next biggest shareholder. And then the next group of guys all were about the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we did it. But I think everybody does it probably a little differently.
Were you in that original 6?
Nope.
Zeb?
Nope.
So where did you come into this?
A year and 1 month later, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I came in just kind of like Steven did back in his the old job.
Yeah.
I came at the bottom level and told Steven, I think I said during my interview, I don't want to manage. I just want to come in, work, and go home. That was it.
And Thomas is the only guy that basically, you know, when you've given away 100% of your shares, there's no more shares to be given unless you want to dilute yourself.
Yeah.
And Thomas was the only guy that wasn't a part of that original core group that we ended up all diluting ourselves and giving him equity.
Okay. And so were you working on the blog at that time, The Cooking Husband? And is that the reason why? So you said, I just want to come in. I don't want to manage. Why were you searching for that for some, because you've been the one hard charging, leading startups, all this. Why at this time in your life were you like, I just want to work, don't manage?
Yeah, I wanted to have the least amount of responsibility as possible.
What the heck was going on, man?
And I just wanted to be responsible for me
Yeah.
and my numbers, and that was it.
Yeah.
And Because, whenever you do startups, you wear multiple hats. And
That's right.
You're pitching, you're selling, and I just wanted to break.
So
Like,
you were
literally.
just ready for a break.
Yeah, I just wanted to go and sell.
Okay.
I really told Steve Craig, I just want to sell. And I remember I was in New York. We were pitching VC. And I remember texting Odom and Steve Craig a picture of annuities for dummies because I didn't want to start the job not knowing what I was going to do. So I read that book. Now I look back on it like that was stupid. But I did it anyways.
Because this is a whole new industry for you.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So, but what you're bringing to the table is the ability to sell.
Yeah, I would say. Like,
Yeah.
I just worked.
Yeah.
Really,
Okay.
what he brought was more the ability to lead than even sell.
At what point did you see that? Because like you said, you guys eventually made the decision to give Zeb
Day
some
one.
Day one, really.
Yeah. There's certain people that come through your path that are just a little different. And, we, between the two companies, we had interviewed 600 or 700 people, probably, maybe more, who knows, between the two companies. And so, when you have done that so many times, you kind of just pick up on things on people pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And Thomas is a very unique guy. He's wired. Everybody should have a Thomas on their team because they're just uniquely wired in a way that most people just are not, where you don't have to ask them to do something. They're already thinking about what they need to do. They think like an owner.
Well, that's nice.
You have an employee that thinks like an owner.
Yeah.
And when you find that person, man, you gotta make sure that that's gold, right? That's gold in business, and they're unicorns, but they're out there.
And that goes back to what you said right off the bat. One of the most important ingredient, in your opinion, is getting the right people on the team. So being ready when you see a Thomas come through the door, being ready to make that move, and don't freaking waste time. Like, sounds like you got right on it.
Yep.
Like, once you knew he was the guy, you guys made it worth his while. And
Yeah, especially after, he proved himself, from a sales perspective.
yeah,
And in a sales company, that's what matters, right? But those intangibles. So there's one thing, the scoreboard don't lie, right? In sales, it's very simple to look up at the scoreboard. You either are selling or you're not selling, and and at our company we make it. It's very apparent, on the scoreboard, and but it's all those other things, because you can have a great salesperson, but someone that they can't manage. And a lot of people make that mistake where they take the number one sales guy and then they make him the manager. And now you've just basically ruined him and your team. And I'm sure you saw that on the SEALs.
Yeah.
You could have and I don't know the right terminology, but the Rambo, right, isn't necessarily the guy that's in the headquarters.
The best sniper is not necessarily going to make the best platoon chief.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in a sales organization, a lot of times people make that mistake where they feel like, man, what's next? He's the number one sales guy or she's the number one sales girl. What's next for that person? And so then you just make them the manager.
Oh, okay.
And then trouble. But in Thomas's case, he had all those other intangibles. And so it was, man, when you get those no-brainers in business, take them.
You better jump.
Take them because they don't come along often.
Wow.
And when they do, you can't miss those opportunities. And that's one of the things I've learned in interviews. I did an interview this morning. We're trying right now in the process of trying to hire 10 people. And it's so hard, because we talk about really taking that time and being patient and getting the right people. But when you're trying to hire so many people, it's just really hard to do. And you just want to just get bodies and put them in there so you can just keep moving. But you got to really focus in on that. And when you're doing those interviews and you know that, man, this person is like legit. Like I always ask 3 questions on a scale of 1 to 10. How positive are you? 10 being the most, 1 being the least. How coachable are you? And how hardworking, right? So those are the 3. And what do you guys want to guess just about everybody in the world says?
10 on everything.
I mean,
Yeah.
at a minimum an 8.
Yeah.
Right. I think twice in like 15 years of hiring, twice someone's like, "Oh, I'm a 6 on the positive scale." I'm like, "Well, man, you are the most honest person that I've ever interviewed."
Yeah.
Because most people are not 8s, 9s, or 10s on the positive scale. They're not 8, 9s, or 10s on the coachable scale, and they're not 8, 9s, or 10s on the hardworking scale. But every once in a while, that person comes along that says, "I'm a 10, and I'm a 10, and I'm a 10," and you're like, you probably are. I believe in 10s. I know that there are 10s. We've got them on our team.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, "Well, I'm a realist." And so 10's not, 8's about as high as you could go because I'm a realist. And it's fun. I mean, that part, it keeps it interesting, right? It's the people part of the business that keeps it interesting and fun.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Zeb, I'm interested. You're coming in and you're like, "Hey guys, I'm ready for a freaking break. I just want to sell. And I don't want to manage. I want to do my thing. When I'm done, I want to be able to go home and chill." How did they convince you to take on the amount of responsibility that you took on? Because that's a big shift.
Yeah, I'm looking back on it. I think it was me taking Steve and Odom to a Mexican restaurant. Do you remember that?
We've been to a lot of Mexican restaurants.
Yeah, we have.
Which time was this?
I was in sales for maybe 3 months, and there was some change and some roles, and I was the only troop that would be honest to Steven. And so I was like, "Mr. O, do you mind if I,
Hold on, you called him Mr. O?
100%. I still call him Mr. O.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that military thing, man.
Yeah, so I was like, "Mr. O, can I take you to lunch?" And he's like, "Sure." And we sat down. I was like, "Listen."
Hold on. You asked Mr. O if you can take him to lunch. The answer is going to be sure.
Absolutely. Every time.
100%.
Yeah.
And I should have said cheap Mexican because I'm paying because I'm cheap.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no worries.
Yeah.
So I remember looking at him and saying, "Look, no one's going to come and tell you this, but the troops are not happy." And I just gave him all here's why they're not happy here. And then he looked at me. I'll never forget. He's like, "Well, it sounds like you need to fix it." And I kind of was taken back by that. And he was like, "Well, what would you do to fix it?" And the rest is history, like literally. And so he let me fix it, and I just went and fixed it.
So you kind of stepped into that management role just because you just couldn't stand it, man.
I just want people happy and working hard. And I didn't want, I didn't want anyone coming to work and being like, "Oh," you know what I mean? Like the environment is fun.
Yeah, but it wasn't no skin off your back. Dude, you just wanted to sell.
Yeah, I know.
But
I knew I could fix it. So I wanted to fix it. But I didn't think I would be in freaking management when that happened. And I'll never forget coming home and I told my wife, I was like, "Jen, I took Mr. Odom to lunch." And she goes, "How did that work out?" It's like, "Well, I told him about some things." And she goes, "Well, did you tell him you want to be a manager now?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "Well, you're going to be." And I think it was a couple weeks later, you were like, "You're going to run the sales team." I was like, "Dang it." But now I'm so glad I did.
And so has that been your position at Impact as sales team manager?
Yeah,
Because
pretty
you
much.
guys work. You guys work very closely.
Oh, yeah.
So like, what's y'all's relationship look like? I mean, because every time I see you guys, you're side by side, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Odom.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how do y'all interact with each other? Is it that same way like that meeting at the Mexican restaurant that day, or like, because y'all are tight, man?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved to now. I mean, it's just more like,
Yeah.
just it would be no different than you two.
Yeah.
Like we're just just brothers. And although I have the CEO title, I don't think of it as that. I mean, we're partners.
Mm-hmm.
And so if Thomas wants to do something, I don't really even, I mean, maybe I give it if he really wants me to think through something, then of course I will. But otherwise, it's like, go, man.
I love that.
Go.
Man.
Like I'm still chain of command, and so I will still.
Oh yeah, he is.
I will still come to Mr. O and say, hey, like there's a decision I wanted to make, but before I make the decision, I want to make sure Mr. O is okay with it.
Yeah.
So, and is this the right thing to do?
And if you don't,
100%.
if somebody's listening to this and they don't have that skill set, it's one that they should really, no matter what people will say, anyone in my position's really, really going to appreciate that,
Yeah.
and it makes you give them even more, it earns you even more trust.
Yep.
And so, be that, if you're the number 2 person or number 3 person, you're working for somebody, man, give them what we're talking about. And all of a sudden you're going to find yourself leveling up. You're going to find yourself leveling up by just being respectful, the chain of command.
Mm-hmm.
And when you earn that extra rope, never taking it for granted.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think people, it just makes you really trust somebody. When you trust them, man, you got the keys to the kingdom.
That's it. Well, I don't know why it's so hard for civilians, or maybe specifically just kind of this generation of people, they cannot grasp what chain of command is and how important it is. It's like we have to teach this to our students on the missions that we run, and it's like they never think about it on their own. Never. We're about to go on a freaking mission. We got a job to do. We've got objectives to reach. We've got hard stuff between us and our objective. Oh, well, they never think to establish a chain of command right off the bat. It's mind-boggling to me. It's just like one of the single most important parts of a team is having that chain of command established and then understanding how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't freaking get it, man.
Yep.
Well,
and you guys, I mean, y'all grew up in that, and even you, Blake, as a police officer, right? I mean, like that's just what y'all do, and
it works.
100%. But you don't learn that in college, right?
No.
I mean, you don't learn that in algebra 2 and trigonometry.
Yeah.
Trigger what?
I don't know. Don't ask me to spell it. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge part of business.
So you guys got Impact rolling, obviously pretty quick,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the challenges that you faced kind of right off the bat, other than getting the right people on board? Were there any other things that stood out to you guys in those first few years as you're experiencing all this growth? And I'm sure the money's getting real, the commitments are getting real, the deals are getting real, and it's just piling on.
Yeah.
What got you through that, man?
Yeah. Whew, man. Every business is so different, right? And ours is like this little niche business. But we had a couple of big barriers right out of the gates. Number one is the company that we were talking about earlier, I worked for Game Plan, which is owned by Allianz. And Allianz is the biggest in the space in what we do. And so we just kind of thought that we would just go and sell Allianz. But when I went and I flew up to Minneapolis and I resigned, I was the youngest president of all their wholly owns. And our company was about 25% of their overall business. So we were the biggest, we were the fastest growing, we were the most profitable, and I was the youngest president. And then I go up and resign.
They didn't like that.
They didn't like that. And I never in my mind thought that that was even going to be an option for them to say, no, we're not going to give you a contract. So I never even dreamed that was going to be part of the conversation. And the CEO at the time, I sat in his office, and he's a tough CEO, very smart. He said, I can't do that. And it was basically when I was asking for a contract and I'm like, well, why? And in my mind, I replay it, and I feel like he said, well, you know why. I feel like he said that like 10 times, and I feel like I was saying, well, I don't know why, because it caught me off guard. I really was surprised that they weren't going to help us, because we just wanted to sell their product. They weren't going to own us, but we still just wanted to sell their product. And so to get to your question, they didn't give us a contract, and it would be like, trying to sell, it'd be like trying to sell running shoes, but in a store, but not having Nike. So yeah, I mean, you can sell some Pumas, but it'd be helpful to have some Nikes in here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge obstacle for us. Is we then had to, because all business is relationships, and all of our relationships were with this one company. So that's when your reputation matters, because now you don't have that relationship, but you still have your reputation. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, we had a pretty good reputation with some other insurance companies, even though we didn't know them, we didn't do business. They knew us, and so they gave us contracts and allowed us to have something to sell. And so that was always hard. Competitors are tough, man. Competitors, they do what they can to try to beat you down too. And we certainly had some of that. And so I think just, navigating, that's all business though. Everybody in whatever business you're in, you're going to have those things.
Yeah.
But always the hardest part is just the people part.
Yeah.
Is trying to make sure that you got the right people on the bus, and that they're happy, and that they're giving you, everything that they tell you they're going to give you when you interview them. To me, that was always and is always the hardest part of business, because when you got a great product, there's plenty of people out there that want to buy it. You got to have the right people on the bus to get it out to the world. What would you say, Debs?
100%. A company is not a company without the people.
Well, but I would say too, though, that there's a part of me that thinks, first of all, it took a lot of courage for Stephen Odom to go up to, that company that you were working for. What was it called again?
That was Allianz.
Allianz. It took a lot of courage for you to go in there and say, I'm resigning.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a hard conversation to have.
Yep.
And then they get pissed, and then you're the whole time you're thinking, oh, heck, this is awesome. I'm going to get Nike in my new shoe store over here that I'm opening. And then they say, no, bud. Like, that could have been devastating,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
But you fell back on your reputation, essentially. Yep. You were like, okay, now I'm going to have to just depend on my reputation, who people know that I am. And that was enough.
Thankfully. Yeah. And it was crazy because, like, we didn't like those other companies. Like those, we sold against them I was there for 10 years, and we sold against those other companies. And now all of a sudden, like, it felt so weird.
Yeah.
Like waking up and all of a sudden I'm fighting for these people that I've been fighting against for all these years. It is just wild. But then, man, I'm so thankful for it because it opened up my whole world to like this whole other world. Mm-hmm. Like all I knew was this, but man, there's this whole other world out there, and all these great relationships, and now lifelong friends that I would have never met had that been the path. But, the awesome thing is it took 10 years, but this past year, we got the Allianz contract.
Did you
Really?
really?
We sure did.
It took 10 years.
Huh.
It took 9 years.
Wow.
9 years.
Man, I didn't know that. Well, I didn't know any of this story.
So
Yeah.
were you building or were you building Impact at the same time you were working for Allianz for a period of time, or was
No.
it? Okay.
Nope. So when
Just
I
plain
resigned
cut.
on April 15th, it's easy to remember because it's tax day. 2011.
Don't talk to us about taxes.
I know. Well,
I hear you love them.
No. Oh yeah. I want to ask. I just want to ask you guys that because, again, you're successful businessmen. All right. I'm a 2-year-old businessman, and I got hit with my first tax bill.
It sucks, don't it?
Look, man. Look, this is how I feel. I feel like my government is handing me a sandwich, a crap sandwich. It's literally a turd smashed between two pieces of white bread. And they're saying, here, eat this. It's going to be good. And I'm saying, no, it's crap. I know it's going to taste like crap because it is crap. But they're saying, no, it's going to taste good.
And then they take the portion that the turd's not in. They take the white bread, take the good stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. But anyways, you just have to eat the crap sandwich. You know it's going to taste like crap. They're telling you, oh, this is necessary. This is the only way this nation can function. That's bull crap, first of all. You know how income tax started? During the Civil War, the Union imposed an income tax on the northern states to pay for their war. They just never stopped doing it. By the way, the Civil War should not be called the Civil War. The Civil War should be called the Second American Revolution, in my opinion. But that's how income tax started, and then it's the crap sandwich. How have y'all kept your sanity dealing with what is your mindset strategy to keep your sanity dealing with that crap?
It's funny. We were just talking about this a couple of weeks ago, remember?
yeah.
I mean, help me.
Man.
Please help me.
You're just going to complain about it forever.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, it's
the question is when they talk about your fair share, what really is, what's fair is if you go to work and you work for 10 hours a day, what's fair that you give back to the government, and what's fair that how many of those hours should you be able to bring home income to your family, right? And I mean, in Georgia, you're at 39.6, I think, or somewhere in that ballpark of what Joe's proposing. And then you've got another, 6% for state. So just call it, you're at 46%.
You're working 6 months out of the year for free for the government.
Yeah. And so what is that fair? I mean, what's fair? I don't know. I guess this is the way I look at it, Chad. We're blessed to be able to have that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so just pay it, and
Is that what's got you through it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And just complain about
There's-
it to someone that you can complain about it to.
Yeah. My wife complains about it because she's the one that writes the check, or I guess now sends the wire, however it's done. But she's like, I can't believe, this is criminal.
I paid more in tax this year than the U.S. Navy paid me, than I brought home in 1 year as a U.S. Navy SEAL, putting my life on the line. It is. It is a freaking dog turd sandwich, son.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you could call it that. I would rather eat a dog turd sandwich.
Probably would.
Hey, next year, I'm going to definitely talk about the turd when I talk about our taxes.
I know, but you just got to look at it like a blessing, man.
I think that is the only way that you can look at it.
Yeah.
Is say, you know what? If I have to pay a lot of tax this year, that means the business has done well.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that it's not state-funded robbery, because that's what it is. You're being robbed. You literally are being robbed. It doesn't mean that it's not that, but to get through it, in order to just get through it and maintain your sanity, I think that's the essential mindset of it.
That, and we live in a great country, America. We just have to do it.
Well, we don't have to do it.
Well, we do, or else Uncle Sam's going to come.
Well, on top of that, all the time you have to spend doing things the way that they want to do it, and they don't even tell you how they want you to do it.
The tax code is some complicated
figure out
stuff,
how to
man.
pay it. Yeah.
The tax code is some complicating
Now,
stuff.
you going to run off that Biden gun?
Oh man, I should.
You should.
I actually bought that with my personal money.
That's a business expense.
Let me tell you how I run my business.
Don't put too much out here now.
I work at 307 Project because it's what I love to do. And I love when we make money just so I can deposit it into a business account, bank account. Because like one day I want 307 Project to own a church building. I want 307 Project to own 100 acres of property. I have all these visions that I know I have to. We're just all the money we make, we just stack it up. I mean, Blake gets a small salary for him and his family, but we just we were trying to stack it up, and it got stacked way down.
It's like when you build the house and somebody comes by and kicks the bottom. Kicks the bottom.
Oh, the whole side of the house fell over.
Yeah.
But like that was my thing. I was like, man, we've actually got and guys, I'm not talking about huge numbers here. I'm a couple $100,000 max, before taxes. And then I'm like, man, we could actually start looking at buying a piece of property now. Then the whole side of the house collapsed. But that's what the mission drives me in business. Like I have to be mission driven in business. If I was driven by the money, and you guys I know are the same way. Yeah. If the money was really, and that's another way to look at this whole tax situation. The money's not driving me. You have to have a certain amount of it to, pay your team members and keep everybody on board. But in all reality, it's not what's driving me, man. And if it was, I would have quit sometime last year.
Listen, this podcast ain't about us, but this is how I figure Chad. A hunting dog, y'all been around some hunting dogs. Mm-hmm. He knows how to hunt real good. Chad's done some coon hunting. And the dog knows how to hunt, but the handler figures out how to get the dog there, gas in the truck, takes care of all the other stuff. So that's how I view our relationship. I just keep Chad sheltered from all that I can, and I just like to get him to the hunting land and turn him loose and let him hunt.
He brings me right there to the creek where the coons are at.
Yep.
He turns me loose, son, and I'm going to win. I'm going to win the hunt.
That's how I view it. Your role. That's one of those fundamentals in business. Know your role. Sounds like you know yours. Sounds like you know yours.
Well, Odom, I really, and Zeb, I really appreciate you giving me permission to complain about being robbed. Stephen Odom, I thank you for your insight on how to maintain my sanity.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
So, I mean, it's wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. All right. For all the listeners, I know we sidetracked there. Maybe y'all got something out of this. Maybe you didn't. I'm going to stop talking about taxes. Look, one thing that y'all do really well is, and you hit on it just a little bit ago, is relationships, man. That's one thing that you guys do super well. And I'll give you the listeners a few examples. Me, Odom, and Zeb, we've been duck hunting together. They took me duck hunting, right? So they hired me to come and speak at one of their events. And as part of that, they took me on a duck hunt, which was more valuable to me than the money. I mean, it's a lifelong memory. It was my first duck hunt, man. I mean, it was awesome. The events you guys have with your leadership teams up in North Georgia, special, small group leadership team. You're pouring into them, no expense spared. You're all open. Look, the events that you guys go to 29029, for instance, that's all relational things. And it really blows me away how much you guys pour into that relational aspect of business. Because here's the thing, I think you can look at it two different, like you can try to look at it and say, well, business is business. And I've tried to do that before. Like when a decision has to be made, like, hey man, this is just business. You go have that hard conversation with somebody, this is just business. Well, in all reality, it's really not ever just business. So why do you guys stress that relational aspect so hard, and you actually invest a large amount of capital into that portion of your team? So what's up with that, man? And how did that happen?
I mean, it's just how Mr. O and I met. It was a relationship, and if you pour into a relationship, the relationship's only going to get stronger. Just like, I'll never forget, Steve and I were hunting. I took him duck hunting for the first time. And do you remember what we said when we walked back in? Man, Chad would love this. Mm-hmm. And so we asked a favor from another friend of ours who's we're clients. And we're like, we have a friend of ours. And that's when we called you.
Yep.
And that life is all about relationships. Your teammates, you got to pour into them. What better way to pour into someone than showing that you're pouring into them with money? Investing in them.
Yeah, yeah.
And so not only do we invest in our teammates, we invest in our clients. So, we're doing 29029 in Idaho, and we have 40 people. Half are going to be our teammates, and half are going to be our clients.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
I mean, that's really what it's about.
You realize how few people will do that, though? Like how few businesses do that?
And y'all are going to be at the events, right?
Yeah, they're at the events. Yeah.
And I mean, to me, that is more important than saying, hey, we've paid for this event, y'all go do it. But you're actually there to do it with them.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that's the real investment.
Definitely. Yeah, that time investment is way more important. Sometimes you got to make a money investment, right? In order to have a time investment, right. Oftentimes. There's ways around that. If you don't, if you're just starting out,
yep.
You can figure out ways to do things that aren't that expensive. And then as you grow, you got to pour into it. But to me, it's all about, that's what's fun. And so, business by itself is not that fun. It's the relationships that make it fun. And so if you don't maximize the things that can be fun, then I don't know how long you can last in that business, unless you just have this crazy grind in your personality. I don't know how you can do something. If you're going to do it, you might as well enjoy it. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And that's the relationship part of it, getting to know people, and you just learn so much from people. I mean, I've learned a tremendous amount from you in the couple of times that we've hired you. The sheepdog.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've used that story with countless people outside of my business.
I got to tell that story real quick.
Man, please do.
So, Odom, again, he bought the T-shirts from us. All right. And Blake and I are just so blown away that happened. We got the T-shirts in, and I brought them to Impact, and I told Odom, I said, hey man, I'd love to stand up and talk to your team for 10 or 15 minutes, and he said, man, yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, see, back then I didn't know that the whole speaking thing was a thing, So I'm like, heck yeah, man. I get to talk to these guys and girls and thank them. And I got up there and did that, and I got ready to go. And I was going down the elevator, and Odom slipped me a little card. I said, oh, I thought it was just a thank you letter or something. I opened that thing up. It had a $500 gift card in it. I thought, holy smokes, man, this is awesome. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, man. Yeah. These guys are you guys are first class all the way. You go above, you literally go like way over the expectations. Anybody you deal with, at least that's been my experience. Anybody you come in contact with, if there are any expectations, you're going to freaking just shatter them, dude. It is inspiring to me.
Well, and these are sharp businessmen. They knew we didn't know nothing about it, and they knew that you would have left there satisfied for the opportunity to get up there and share with their team. So they could have left it at that. It's not like you were about to leave wishing you had got some money or anything.
Yeah.
And everything would have been fine. But that is like the next level. You know, Chad called me on the way home. He's like, these jokers just give me $500 and they said it was for gas money. He was like, man, it only took me like an hour to get down here. And
well, I never would have dreamed he was driving a Toyota.
Yeah.
I figured he'd be out in like some gas guzzler.
But I'm going to tell you, man, it's just you guys have consistently shattered any expectations. You've been so generous beyond any expectation. And by you guys doing that for me, it was you were actually mentoring me. You were showing me that I had some value to bring to the table. Like, do y'all understand that? You were mentoring me in that way.
I love that.
If you would not have done, you helped me recognize that, man, this might be something that I can do that's going to help other people. And if you wouldn't have done that and I would have just walked out of there, heck yeah, I would have been happy. But just for the opportunity, but I might have never took the next step and said, maybe I should hone this in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
it's a byproduct of you guys shattering the expectations, although there were none, was you were actually mentoring me in the process. So I don't know. Those things, I'll be telling that story when I'm 80 years old, man. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the other things that is just a good lesson in life is when I called you for that senior leadership get together.
Yeah.
Right? Because you were kind of talking about the
taking them out on the basic course.
The basic course. And, it would have been very simple for me to just say, okay, and do something that I really didn't want to do. Or just say, man, we're going to pass. We're going to do something else. But, if there's somebody out there like a Chad Wright in your life that you don't really know, just ask them, hey, here's what I'd like to do. Could we customize something? And you were like, absolutely. Let's customize it. And we created an awesome day.
That was a fun day.
Except for them freaking gnats.
Except for the gnats.
Freaking gnats.
But
they were rough, weren't they?
And then Chad's just acting like he's, you and I are like,
oh, he didn't.
Yeah, I'm like that freaking
a million gnats, a billion.
Oh
gnats. Yeah, and not once did Chad even do this.
And we're over there going.
I had the
windshield wiper.
See. Yeah.
Oh, they were rough, son.
So rough, but it's just a good lesson in just if there's somebody out there that you want to spend some time with, man, ask them.
Yeah.
And it works both ways too, because not only was that an awesome day and a great opportunity for us to spend time with each other and, me be able to share with your team my lessons learned. But it worked both ways, because even in that scenario, so I had a product that I could offer you that I believe in, which is the basic course. I had an experience that I believe in, that I believe would have freaking nailed it. But that for me, that was the easy thing because it was the curriculum's there, it's in place, and like all I need is the bodies, right? And so by you doing exactly what you just said, it allowed me to grow as an instructor, right? Because now I've got to become innovative. I've got to start thinking of like, man, what can we do? So it stretched me as I call an instructor, or I guess essentially a business owner. So it was beneficial both ways, the way that ended up playing out.
Yeah, and
it's really cool.
I think on our end, it kind of teaches us that, like how you pitch things, right? Like if you're asking for that, we shouldn't have just said, yeah, let's take them on a basic course. We could have said, hey, we have this basic course, but we understand what's required in this, and it's not for everybody. If you would like us to we could have prefaced it on the front end of that, and then also, for me personally, a lot of times I will get focused on just getting something done, like a checklist.
Yeah.
And I won't take the time to enjoy the opportunity or the relationship there. So, I've heard you say it a bunch of times, and what I hear you saying is like everything's an opportunity. Like
it is.
Each situation you got, like, what's the opportunity here?
Well, that's where
instead of just getting it done.
You guys talk about being present.
Yeah.
Right? That's really what you're talking about.
That's it.
Just really trying to be present in every moment.
Yeah.
And there's opportunities everywhere and in everything. But if you're not being present, you may miss it.
That's it.
Yeah. But don't be afraid to ask. That's the thing. That was the mountain. That's the first. If I would not have been proactive and already had a plan in my mind of like how to get some time with you, we would not be. We've done so many trips since then.
Yeah.
The old butterfly effect, man. It's like everything you do matters, and it matters forever.
And I'll never forget him. I'll never forget Odom telling me when we were sitting there, you're like, I'm going to hike with that guy. I'll never forget it. And now look where, you're going to speak at our company event later this month.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait for that, by the way. That's going to be an awesome deal right there. Going back to that relationship aspect, I think it's the reason I brought that up is because it's extremely important to me because I saw it happen in the SEAL teams, right? So us, when we were in a platoon, we would work together, whatever it was. Say we were doing land warfare and, we're out in Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, and we're out on the, in the field training, running IADs and, fire maneuver drills and just, suffering together, but we're working. Well, how we really would mesh as a platoon is when we would go out to dinner or go out to the bar. Now, I'm not advocating going out to the bar, but we didn't have much else to do, right? We're in Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, and we're a SEAL platoon. Like, we went out in town. We went out in town together, and we did things, extracurricular things together. Maybe we got up early and went deer hunting or something like that, And that is where the SEAL platoon would really mesh. It wasn't when you were working together. It was all the extracurricular things that we did together. And it's interesting because the guys will argue this all day long. But traditionally, the East Coast SEAL teams are more effective operators than the West Coast SEAL teams. And so the way that they explain that is because on the West Coast, it's always sunny. It's always nice. So guys, when they get done working, they go back home and they get their families and they go out on a hike or they go, travel somewhere in Southern California or something like that, right? And they're with their families, right? Well, on the East Coast, the weather's freaking nasty. It gets cold as balls. There ain't nothing else really to do on the East Coast. You can't go surf or swim or the waves suck, right? So East Coast team guys, when they got off of work, they go to the bar together. They go out to eat together. They find something to do to get they spend more extracurricular time together, after work. And it's you really see the difference there.
Yeah.
So I think the environment plays a big role in that as we look at it in the SEAL teams between East and West Coast. But I think it's applicable, and I think that's been probably a main aspect of you guys' success as leaders and businessmen is the fact that you make those investments in those extracurricular activities and relationships, right?
Yeah.
That's why you guys are able to be so tight. Let's take a little break. We're going to come back, talk a little bit about Mr. Odom and Zeb's testimony. Hey guys, have I told you about my bushcraft necklace from Wazoo Survival Gear? Well, you need to get you one because it's a really sharp piece of gear that you can wear around your neck every day. That's what I do. And it gives you the capabilities to start a fire in any weather condition, in any temperature, in any scenario. And fire is very important to your survival as a human being. If you find yourself in a tight spot, right? We can cook over it. We can get warm from it. We can purify water over it. There's a lot of things that we can do with fire. And Wazoo Survival Gear makes products that allow us to have that capability anytime, any place, anywhere. Guys, tools increase your capability. More capability gives you more options. More options gives you the freedom to choose where you go, where you explore, the things you do. That's where Wazoo Survival Gear comes in. It's the perfect melding of form and function that allows you to build a wide variety of tools into your everyday wear. This stuff is awesome, guys. I've been using Wazoo Survival Gear products for well over a year now. Every time we go out on the basic course, every time I'm stepping off on a mission, and a lot of their products are just with me day in and day out, like my bushcraft necklace, like my cash cap, just going through regular everyday life. They're an awesome company, 100% made in America. Awesome dudes, Dustin and Nick. You've probably heard them. They've done an episode on the 3 of 7 podcast. Go give them some support, man, at wazoosurvivalgear.com. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. As a matter of fact, I've attached a link to their website in the show notes of this episode, a special link for you guys. When you go and place your order with Wazoo, they've given us a pro code that's going to give you 20% off your order. The pro code is the number 3 of the number 7, all caps. That's the best deal you're going to find on Wazoo Survival Gear products anywhere. They asked me how I wanted to split this up. I could get 10% back on the purchases that you guys made using this pro code, and y'all could get 10% off. I said, no, give the customer 20% off. Give the podcast listener 20% off because you guys have rewarded me by showing up and listening to this show. So I want you to have the full discount. This company doesn't put their stuff on sale because this stuff is all handmade. And yeah, it's not stuff that goes on sale or expires. So it's a great deal. Go check them out, wazoosurvivalgear.com. Follow them on Instagram at Wazoo Survival Gear. Thanks a lot, guys. Enough said. Oh, don't be afraid of that mic, man. I got awful far from you there a few times.
Did it? Good thing my voice is so sexy.
All right, we're back, guys. All right, so I can't. First of all, thank you guys so much for sharing the story of that journey with us. I mean, you guys are continuing to pour into us and develop us just by hearing your story and the things that you've done and how you've overcame and all the aspects of everything we just talked about was awesome for me personally. But I can't let you go without at least hearing some about your testimony. You guys know 3 of 7 is all about body, soul, and spirit. So, Zeb, it was interesting to me. You talked about you were driving down the road that day and you saw the church set. What did it say again?
We party on Sunday.
We party on Sunday. And so was it that day or shortly thereafter you decided to get saved?
So when I was in the Air Force, I'll never forget it. I was stationed at Biloxi for training. And you know what you do when you get a hall pass to go off a base, I went to a mall of all places, and this is the first time I got saved. And I was by myself, and this black guy comes up to me and is like, "Hey, Airman." I don't know how he knew I was. I was probably 110 pounds. Who knows? You know, that buzz cut. But he's like, "Are you saved?" I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." He's like, "Do you know where you're going to go when you die?" I'm like, I mean, my mom and dad, I mean, they were religious, but I never really paid attention. And so I was like, "Yeah, I'm assuming I'm going to go to heaven." So he's like, I felt like he was being a sales guy. So he's like, "I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to take you to church on Sunday." I'm like, "Okay, good luck getting on our base." So I was like, "Okay, here's my barracks number." And no joke, I'll never forget it. Knock on the door. It was butt early. I'm in my boxers, open up the door, and it's him. He's like, "I'm here to take you to church." So I go to church. I'm the only white guy there. And that church lasted a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, a long time. But the music was amazing. And then they did food. And I went there for 3 weeks. And that's when the first time, like, I truly believed in Jesus. And then, you know how the military is. And I just got busy. But I always believed in Jesus. And then, my brother died. And I was mad. I was angry. It was the day before my 30th birthday. I had just started a business. And I had significant debt. It was $2 million, in debt that I borrowed. And I was just angry. And then luckily, my wife, Jen, was on my side. And for some reason, that sign made me realize that, hey, you need to, like, live life. And just come to this church and see what it's all about. And go into that church, and that very first moment when I walked in, it kind of reminded me of a tech. I mean, you've been there. It's very like, it kind of looks like a tech. It's very modern, etc. And Steve Craig, his message, and I was so relieved. Like, God talked to me that day and told me my brother is fine and he's in heaven. And I just I started reading the Bible, and then I did a Jesus 101 class, which Steve Craig taught. Mm-hmm. And then he asked me, he is like, "Have you been saved?" I'm like, "What do you mean have I been saved?" He's like, "Have you been baptized? Do you believe that Jesus Christ?" Yes. And so I'll never forget, he's like, "You should get baptized." And so Jen and I both got baptized, and I was 1 and she was 2. And the rest is history. And even my kids today, if they were in here, they would tell you that it's so important to our family. And we do prayers, during dinner table, during breakfast, during lunch. And then at night, I just told I have a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old. And when we say our prayers at night, we got to be thankful, but I call him Daddy. And so I just kind of pour that into my kids. And so it's been an awesome thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful, man. And I think I like that Jesus 101 class. I like that. That's pretty cool. I never heard of a congregation or whatever offering something like that. It's so simple. We say this word, get saved. It's, you guys may have heard me say it before, but this is what we're talking about. That you believe that Jesus is king, right? Jesus is your savior, and that he died and was risen from the dead. You believe that, right? And then you get baptized for the remission of your sins. And then you repent. You turn away from who you were and you follow him. That's all we're talking about, guys. It's nothing complicating. But, he pulled you in at a moment, I think the right moment, huh? Mm-hmm. Because
I was angry.
Yeah. Man. Angry. Were you just angry, or were you directing that somewhere, or?
I was mad at him, and my brother was 24 years old.
Yeah.
Pulmonary aneurysm, and he didn't even get to live life. So I blamed God, and I was just angry.
Gosh, that had to have been a heck of a day when you when you heard from the Holy Spirit Had some peace about that, man.
Oh, yeah.
You can't turn back from that, huh?
No, 1,000 pounds lifted off my chest.
Gosh, dog, brother. That's a good one, Brandon. I appreciate you sharing that with us, Zeb.
Of course.
Yeah, that's powerful. What about you, O?
I should have gone first. End on a high note.
Yeah, I mean, you. There's like, yeah, it's hard to even make comment on that. It's like so just.
I know.
Zeb is so clear. Like, this is where I was.
Yep.
Boom. This is what happened. Boom.
Yeah.
1,000 pounds. Look, man, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. Everything Thomas just said is scriptural. This is what Jesus wants to happen to you. This is what he tells it in such a beautiful way, man.
And having that moment. I think mine's more traditional, I would guess. I was in a little country church in Cartersville, Georgia, where my mom grew up, and my grandparents went to this church. And maybe, I don't know, maybe 50 people in there total. And it's still there, Crossroads Baptist Church. And the pastor called all of us up. I was probably 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that range. I was just a little kid, and he said, you know, who wants to get saved? And all of those, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 of us little kids that were all up there. And I knew that if I did, I was going to get a little peppermint candy stick because I'd seen them do it before, you know, previously.
Yeah.
And so it was my turn. I went up there and got saved, and that was I don't remember being baptized, so I don't know if I actually have been or not. I don't remember it, and I've never asked my parents. So I probably should ask my mom on that because I don't remember if I was, or I assume I was, but you know I don't remember it as clearly as you do.
Mm-hmm.
You know I love to baptize people, right?
Do you?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Ain't nothing better. I'm steady looking for people who need to be baptized.
He's got one under his belt.
You?
No.
No, I know who. I didn't know if he baptized
Oh, no.
you.
No.
Oh, gotcha.
No.
I'm trying to be up to 100 by the end of 2022.
Wow.
I got one under my belt. Might have 2.
I was about to say
where'd you
you
get it
might
at?
have
Look,
to.
I baptize in the river too. I
Nice.
don't do this. It's not a production now.
Yeah.
You might get bit by a fish.
Yeah.
You might step on a snapping turtle. It's a risk.
The current might take you under
Yeah.
and might lose you.
It's a risk.
You might catch a catfish at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Well-
I got this place called Lake Blue Ridge
Yeah.
where I don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
Unless we do it in the winter.
oh man.
So,
Yeah.
you know, when did or how has your you doing that as a kid like that for the peppermint candy stick? You know, when did this relationship with Jesus, or has it, or is there something that you can point to where it really became important to you, or a real, like, tangible part of your life? You know what I mean?
So I went to Truett McConnell, which is a private Baptist college up in Cleveland, Georgia. That was the first school I went to. And on my way there, my mom told me that she was divorcing my father. So I'm 17 or 18 years old. And I'm going to school where there was one girl I went to high school with that was going there. But outside of that, I knew no one, and I barely knew her. And I get dropped off, and my roommate, his name was Jack Gaines, was what was on the outside of the door, and so that's the extent of what I knew of Jack. And I walked into the room with my mom. We stopped at a Chinese restaurant, I think, on the way there, and she told me. And I walk into the room, and Jack is short for Jermaine Gaines. Jermaine's 6'11" is a starting basketball player on the basketball, or starting center on the basketball team. And Jermaine's got his entire family in our dorm room. So there's like 20 people, and they're all holding hands, and they're having church right there in the dorm room. And he always kept his Bible by, like right there by his bed. Every night he'd read his Bible. And that was a hard time for me because, my parents have been married for my whole life, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm getting dropped off a place I didn't know anybody. And with Truett being a private Baptist college, there was Bible courses. You had to go to chapel, all of those things. And I joined the Student Baptist Association and was going to that every Wednesday or whatever it was. And I think kind of in that moment, that time in my life, and that's why God put me there. I met some guys, Chad Cannon, who to this day still is involved with like kids in the ministry, and a guy named Joe Grubbs, who just became dear friends, and they were both really strong Christians and really just helped me through a time that was just hard as a kid. No one, I don't care how old you are, I don't think you ever want your parents to go through a divorce. You know? And so I would say that's probably the time when I look back. But I remember specifically, and I shared this with Steve Craig, where we were building out the building where we are now.
Yeah.
But before, we were across the way, and we were in about maybe 3,000 square foot space. Today we're in, I think, like 30,000 square foot. And we were taking this huge leap of faith in building out our business. So we had this insurance company that came to us, was going to give us an opportunity called Security Benefit. They're going to give us this product that had never been done before. They picked us out of all these IMOs. They picked 4, but we were one of them. We were just this tiny little company at the time. And so we're like, man, if this actually works, like we're going to grow so fast that this 3,000 square feet's not going to do it. So we went and we bought 15,000 square feet. So 5 times the size of what we were currently in, all on the hope that this new product that we were going to be able to sell will work. And I remember walking across the parking lot, and really, I would say it's the first time in my life that like God spoke to me, and he told me that everything, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what he said, but when I got to the building, I literally had tears in my eyes. And at the time, it was just a big open space. There was nothing in there yet. And I had tears in my eyes because I knew that everything was going to be okay. And I know that was God that talked to me on my walk through that parking lot. And it's probably the first and last time where, like, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, like I heard it. You know what I mean? And I think people oftentimes want that and never get it. And for whatever reason, I got it. Just everything's going to be okay. I heard it loud and clear. Mm-hmm. And that's probably like the my God moment, like where I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was him telling me. And then, of course, everything has been, it's worked out even more than I could have ever dreamed. And so
I'll tell you what, man, you guys have also surrounded yourself with some great men and women of God, great children of God within your team there at Impact. Mm-hmm. And, at least the ones that I've gotten to spend some time with are just rock solid, man.
Yeah.
And I have to believe that probably a lot of the decisions that you make and the standards you uphold and the morals and ethics that you have at Impact are probably biblical. Mm-hmm. I have to imagine. And
yeah, we've been dinged on that a couple of times on some, review type things where people, there's a lot of people in the world. I mean, you talk about it every time you talk about Jesus, you lose about
Yeah.
what 20 or 30 people.
Oh, more than that. Yeah.
And so we're, our business is no different, and we don't really, I don't think we Steve is not, he's the one that, started his hands, and it's a non-denominational, very different from what I grew up, like Southern Baptist Church. This is very, very different. So he was always very aware of like not wanting to like, force Jesus on employees, right? So we never really talked about it. Even when he would pray at like event functions where we'd have advisors and stuff, he was very, very aware of like what he would say. Because, we have Jewish people, we have Muslims, we have atheists, I'm sure. We have like all different types of people from all different walks that are our customers, right? And then, of course, our employees are all the same thing, too. We've got this diverse thing. And so it's a very fine line to walk, especially when you're Steve, who's the pastor of a Jesus church, And so, but I think that he always did a good job of.
He did.
People knew where he stood and where the company stood. Some people left because of it, but we never forced it.
Well, I think simply what you guys, from my perspective, what you've done is you've provided an environment where people can feel comfortable being open about their faith.
Yes.
Like they're in the workspace. Like if somebody called out the name of Jesus, they wouldn't get looked at like they got something vulgar drawn on their forehead. Like it's just it seems like everybody's, not that everybody's on the same page in their relationship with Jesus, but the fact that I feel like anybody in there could share their testimony and they wouldn't have to worry about suffering persecution
Absolutely.
from you guys or from their team members. Mm-hmm. That's a really unique environment, man.
Yeah.
For a company as big as you guys, operate in.
Yeah.
So.
I've had advisors tell me, and a lot of people, when they come into our space, they're like, man, something just feels different in here.
Yeah.
But I've had advisors, and the 2 times I can remember, it was both where advisors bring their spouses, and the women would say to me, you know what that is? That's the Holy Spirit that's in here.
Yeah.
Like they felt it. And we don't talk, it's not like we're talking to that advisor about anything. It's just, I think we certainly are surrounded by a lot of people that believe strongly and are great Christian people. And I think that the Holy Spirit, when people feel that thing, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
And I hope that he or she stays around, I mean, you need that.
Yep.
You need that. You need, whether you want to call it luck or God or whatever, the Holy Spirit, I pray for, every night, I pray for God to continue to bless our company and our teammates, our partners. You get which you guys are. And it's a huge part of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I do the same thing. Pray for my family, pray for our teammates. I pray for Odom for leadership. I pray for every single teammate on our company every night. And when we make decisions, I pray about it. Ask God, make sure we make the right choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some prayers.
We do.
Kim
Yeah.
and Ed.
Mr. Ed.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll go in there.
Yep.
Bibles, armed with Bibles, and
I know.
they'll go into different rooms. And I mean, they really pray hard and have prayed hard many times for us.
Yeah. BG, I'm going to get you straight one day, boy. I know you got it. I know you got it, son.
Have you ever seen The Preacher Man in action?
I mean, I know BG's got it in him.
Oh yeah.
He just
does.
he
does.
just I got a little few minor tweaks I want to walk BG through. And that jerk about to be on fire, son.
Oh man.
I know he's gonna listen to this podcast. That's why I'm calling him out.
Absolutely. And by the way, I can say this to him: the Saints still suck.
Well, guys, man, I could sit here and talk to you guys for hours. I know you got a long drive home. We'll wrap it up right here. Blake, you got anything?
No, I just appreciate y'all coming out and your honesty and everything here. There's a lot of stuff you guys shared that you're putting yourself out there, but
Yeah.
in the hopes that it's going to make someone else better. I know that's why y'all are doing it. So I appreciate y'all's time investment you've made out here and who you are to us as friends and as business partners.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't care if the only people listen to is me and BG. I got a ton out of this, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Really. You guys got anything else on your heart that you?
No, man. Just for those of you that are supporting Chad and Blake, these guys are the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you get the opportunity to do something with them, do it. If you don't like exactly whatever has been laid out, call them. These are good guys, and you'll be blessed, and you'll be better. You'll be a better person by partnering with them in somehow, some way. So don't be afraid. Just call them.
That means a lot. I appreciate it, brother.
Good peeps. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Zeb. Maybe we might do an elk hunt this fall.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we're going to.
Don't say it. We're not even gonna.
No, I'm gonna get some meat.
We ain't even gonna. We'll talk about O's hunting
With the rain.
skills. Yeah, later on in another episode. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. This is the 3-7 podcast. Enough said.